What's going on, everyone? UFC 312 has now come and gone, and we need to talk about Sean Strickland. Now, heading into this one, I had a feeling DDP was going to get his hand raised once again because I just think he's overall just better than Sean. But I didn't think he was going to do it like this. He completely dominated Sean on the feet and didn't go for a single takedown. And honestly, I think that's really because of how Sean looked in that fight. He looked timid the entire time. He was never really applying any pressure, and he was never doing anything dangerous to Dricus. So Dricus was just comfortable standing in front of him and landing his own shots. And I don't want to go in on Sean too hard here, but that was honestly a terrible performance. And throughout that entire fight, there was not 1 second where I thought Sean was going to turn things around and get his hand raised. And that's not something you want to be saying in a title fight. And especially when you're a guy like Sean Strickland, who talks a lot and always talks about how he's going to go to war, he's going to go to the death. And honestly, you just don't see that at all in any of Sean Strickland's fights, especially this one. Like in that 4th and 5th round, when it was clear that Sean lost the first 3, I expected to see a lot more aggression from him. I thought he was going to come out and just start blitzing at Dricus, trying to chase the finish because, you know, that's what you have to do. And he just didn't do that at all. He stayed in his same style the entire fight, the same positions, and overall, that's what cost him. And it's not completely mind-blowing that Sean stuck to his guns and didn't want to chase a finish or switch a style because he hasn't done that in any of his fights before. But usually when you're down 3-0, you got to try something different because what you're doing is clearly not working. I do think that staph infection had a big impact on this fight though. However, I think that really affected Sean's output and his ability to completely put on the pressure like he usually does because he was trying to reserve his cardio throughout the fight. That staph infection didn't help, but if you have staph, then you shouldn't even be competing. And yeah, it was pretty cool when Sean had his nose broken in that 4th round and was sitting there trying to readjust it and fix it. Whatever. Sean's a dog. I'm not doubting that. We all know he clearly is, but his fights are just not it. They're always boring. And for how much he talks and how much he likes to say that he's always in interesting fights and that he's going to go to war, it just never happens. And this isn't the first guy that we've seen in the UFC before that talks a lot about how he's going to put on big fights. And when the fight comes, it's pretty boring. We had Colby Covington. Like, that's exactly what Colby does. People don't watch Colby Covington fights because of his fights. They watch it because of the buildup and what he says. And it's the same type of idea with Sean Strickland. You're not tuning in for the fight. You're tuning in for what he says and how he reacts to certain things. And I mean, from his perspective, it's going to make him a lot of money. And yeah, he's going to become a big name from it. But the fans and the diehards are never going to really fall in love with you because at the end of the day, we just want to see great fights. And when you're not in great fights, you're putting on boring performances and you're putting on performances like he did against Dricus, which was completely flat. It's tough to gain over the fans. I'm not even sure what Sean does from here. Like, now he's lost to Dricus twice. He's going to be out of title conversations for a while. The top of the division is pretty loaded. Of course, we know Khamzat's going to be fighting for the belt next. Probably following that, Nasruddin Imavov. But Sean's fought a lot of these guys at the top already. Like I mentioned, Nasruddin Imavov, he already fought him, beat him. He already fought Izzy, beat Izzy. There's not too much for him to do there. I mean, there's a Kyle Barallo fight maybe he could take. Maybe a Robert Whittaker fight. Potentially those could be options for him. Maybe an Israel Adesanya rematch, even though I don't think it does much for the division. There's options, but I'm not sure if people are going to get excited for a Sean Strickland fight the same way that they used to. I think a lot of people were wanting to see him versus Khamzat Chimaev, but I don't think that fight's going to happen. And honestly, for political reasons and other reasons, I'm not going to get into that, but I don't see that fight happening whatsoever. And now Sean's in a tough position because what do you do with a guy like this? You know he's a big draw. You know he causes a lot of controversy, good or bad, and there's fights for him in this division, but where do you have them? Are they going to be on pay-per-views? Are they going to be on fight nights? What do you do with this guy? I'm not sure. In my opinion, I think he'll still be headlining cards. I think you could see him headline a lot more fight nights now in North America and in America especially. I think that's what makes sense for Sean at this point. And overall, I would be disappointed if I were him with this performance. If I were a Sean Strickland fan, I'd be very disappointed with this performance. And overall, if I were the UFC, I'd be disappointed with this performance. Like, this was so boring, and for a card that a lot of people didn't have high expectations for to go in with, I mean, really, the only big high-profile fights on this card were the first one in DDP and Strickland, and Tatiana Suarez and Zhang Wei Li, and both of those were one-sided beatdowns. The next probably most interesting fight on the card was Alexander Tuporia and Colby Thicknessy on the prelims for guys making their debuts. yeah, this card was just terrible. And when you have very top heavy cards like this, you want the co-main and the main event to deliver, and they did not. They were both just one-sided beatdowns. As for DDP, quickly, because he's the one who won this fight, I want to touch on him quick. I think he looked incredible. I think DDP's a tank, man. I've been saying it for a while. He's on such an incredible run right now. I mean, he beat Robert Whittaker, Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, and then Sean Strickland again. Now in his next fight, he's going to be taking on the Wolf, Khamzat Chimaev, in probably one of my most anticipated fights for the year, honestly. If this fight gets booked this year, I will be so happy. I'm really interested to see what happens. I think DDP gives Khamzat the most problems out of anybody in this division. Ironically, funny enough, I mean, he's a champion. He should, but Khamzat's a tough guy to figure out, and if there is going to be somebody, I think it's DDP. He didn't use his wrestling a lot in this fight or his grappling, but make no mistake, he's very good at wrestling. He's shown it before, and I think against a guy like Khamzat's not going to go in there and be able to ragdoll Dricus. He's going to have to use some other tools and probably try and wear him down as the fight goes on. And it's a tough guy to fight because DDP, he's so unique. He doesn't even know what he's doing half the time. He kind of just throws and it works out for him. So that's going to be a very interesting fight, but you got to tip your hat off to DDP. He absolutely went in there against Sean Strickland and completely dominated him for 5 rounds. When their first fight was close and a lot of people were saying he didn't win that fight, he went in there quickly, shut down the haters, and proved to everybody why he's the champion of the world. So there you guys have it. Those are my thoughts on this main event at UFC 312. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and let me know what you think is next for Sean Strickland. I want to hear what you guys have to say, and I want to hear what you guys thought of his performance as well. Thank you all for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, as that helps me out a ton, and stay tuned for more videos just like this one. I'll see you all in the next one.